Yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy Sean Black, aka DFS 5050. You can follow me on Instagram at DFS 5050. There you'll see a lot of my results, some ideas that I'm thinking about for the upcoming weeks for the NFL, NBA, and everything like that. Again, wins and losses, stuff that I live and die by when it comes to DFS. I just opened up a new page on Facebook, and that's DFS Portfolio. But it's, of course, Facebook/DFS 5050. But the page itself is DFS Portfolio. There, what I want to do is just show basically the results, the ideas that I had going into certain games and stuff like that, and just basically sharing with you guys some of the tips that I collect from other beat writers and things of that nature as well. Because you know what, the more information that you have that you can process clearly in DFS and process it into a lineup that is worth your while, the better you are. Any edge is better than none. With that being said, what I want to do is I want to show you guys how I almost won $500. Oh, dear God. I was so close, and I'm going to show you how close I was to winning $500. Let me share my screen with you guys. Let me mute this thing on the phone. And, and then also after we do that, I want to show you guys what I'm looking at going into week 4. Okay, so here we go. All right, so I have y'all say. Okay, so I'm presenting the screen to everybody. Okay, cool. All right, so check this out. So here's my lineup. All right, and in this lineup, I basically end up getting in 12th place, and I'll show all of my lines here. My lowest score, which did not cash, was 138.46. And I think that was the one that had Jacob Tamme in it and Devontae Parker. Had I known better, I probably would have got Stills in here. I probably might have, if I would have had Stills in there, I probably would have cashed on that one too. But anyways, my top lineup, 203.84. As you can see, I was 12.76 points from first. And in this situation, if I would have switched out Jeremy Hill, which was my top play for the Monday through Thursday slate, I actually would have not only got first place, but I would have got first place by, let's see here. I probably would have got first place by like almost 6 points, and 6 points in DFS world is a lot to try to, inch up on, especially if you're dealing with running backs and wide receivers that may or may not be getting the targets that they need coming down the stretch. Now, had Miami made it more of an interesting game, I think that we would have seen more production out of some of those players in the Cincinnati Miami game. However, the main stack of this game, the main stack of this Monday through Thursday slate was really, the New Orleans stack, New Orleans Atlanta stack. As you can see, this guy had Matt Ryan, Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman, AJ Green, which went off like, oh my God. Shout out to Kevin Football Geek. I'm sorry. Kevin Sports Geek is good too. He has some good information, but Kevin Football Geek at DFS Army, the chat room that they have in there is very phenomenal and has been very instrumental in helping me win consistently, especially with the theories and how to really construct your lineups to win. In any case, Jarvis Landry, he was not his best, but I mean, he was kind of dealing with a little nudge of an injury. Michael Thomas, Kobe Fleener, and Mark Ingram. For future reference, Kobe Fleener at home, I'm going to start targeting now that he's getting more versed in the New Orleans offense. Mark Ingram, he did pretty well, and the Bengals defense is what really took the cake there. Atlanta defense did pretty well too, being away and everything. They had 11 points, I believe. So that was the winning lineup. So my lineup, I had Drew Brees, Devontae Freeman, Mark Ingram, AJ Green, Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, Kobe Fleener, Jeremy Hill, and Bengals. Again, guys, Jeremy Hill, man, oh my God. I really thought that, he was going to be my top play. And he was also 50.7% owned. And one of the things that I was listening to, some of the beat writers and some of the people that I listened to on YouTube, they were basically saying that, oh, you should fade AJ Green and Jeremy Hill is a top play and everything like that. And honestly, they were correct because the matchup was there. Everything, the stars were aligned for Jeremy Hill to have a good running game because Miami's run game is not, run defense, I should say, is not really the best in the world. They're the best against sorry teams, but Cincinnati's not really a sorry team. I mean, these guys are pretty much not Vegas prone. Well, Vegas loves them, but they're more of a they're playoff prone. They're a playoff prone team. And I think if I'm not mistaken, if I'm looking at my paperwork, I believe that they have a decent schedule, to where they can make the playoffs. But that's a different story. All right. So listen, I was 12th place. I was 12.76 points away from being number one. Who doesn't love to be number one, right? Who doesn't want to be on the top of the hill? But I do these videos because the number one reason I do these videos is not only for you guys, but also for myself, and to see the thought process that I had going into it. I was like, okay, well, I knew that New Orleans at home, they perform like on a supernatural level. I knew that. And I knew that Cincinnati at home performs at a supernatural level. And so with that being said, it was just a matter of the combination. And of course, when you have a 2-game slate, i.e. Monday to Thursday, anybody can show up, and everything like that, right? So going into it, I knew I really was more on Tevin Coleman than Devontae Freeman, but at the last minute I switched over to Devontae Freeman, and that was good. I should have just, kind of had him in there. But again, that was basically one of the thought process that I had going into this lineup. I knew that I wanted Drew Brees. I knew that I wanted Ingram, and I knew that I wanted Thomas because I just felt like Brandon Cooks, I don't know, he just didn't seem like he was going to be himself like he was in, the prior weeks. I knew Bengals defense was going to be off the chain. I knew they were going to definitely put up some points. Now, oh my God. Now, if Draftkings was to put in a kicker, Nugent went off last night. 19 fantasy points for anybody that's playing FanDuel. That dude went ham, man. And I don't know, something about kickers and that level of consistency just fell out ridiculous. But I'm going to show a couple more of my lineups here. This next lineup in here, I believe I had the Falcons D. I had Jeremy Hill again. I had Kobe Fleener. I had Kenny Stills, which I switched out at the last minute. Kenny Stills, oh my God, that dude, he was really more or less a punt play for me. And if I'm not mistaken, he was dirt cheap too. He was 3,500, and this dude put up more points than Landry. And because if Landry would have had a touchdown, then of course, he would have met his value, but he didn't. But this guy right here, Kenny Stills, he's also another guy to watch out for, especially when the pass game, the pass defense of the opposing team is kind of weak. He's definitely one of Ryan Tannehill's targets. So that's someone that, y'all might want to look out for in the upcoming weeks, especially when they're coming against a weaker defense, if they even come across a weak pass defense. Let's see. This one here, I'm kind of upset at myself because I was thinking someone on the lines that the Saints were going to give me some kind of points. But, yeah, I totally forget that the Saints defense is just flat out horrid, and they really need to fire their defensive coordinator on that one because their defense is just ass. But that's a different story. In this one, I had Kenny Stills, AJ Green, Brandon Cooks. As you can see, Brandon Cooks and Julio Jones were highly owned, and they put, almost put up goose eggs. And basically the running backs in this game and the tight ends really helped me out. Let's see, I'm trying to see if I had one with Tevin Coleman at all, and I don't see it. So But anyways, that's those are my lineups. This lineup, these top 5 lineups right here, helped turn my $6 into $32. So basically, I got, what's that? 6 times 4, 6 times, almost a 5x. I did about 5x, a little over 5x on DraftKings on the Monday through Thursday slate. Again, I was 12.76 points away from number 1, and had I switched out Jeremy Hill with Tevin Coleman, I would have had that. All right, so that's basically how I almost won $500, and I'm not upset. I'm not biased or anything like that. This week 4 is going to be a good one for me, especially with all the knowledge that I've gained over the weeks. And now that there's more data being in place, I could really do some more damage and really take home some more money. All right. So going into week 4, there are some things that I'm looking at. And in seasons prior, this is like officially my third season playing NFL, and this is really like the most serious that I've ever been. Because I want to be professional with this, right? I want to be able to take home some big money and make some things happen. So, anyways, as we can see right here, San Diego New Orleans game is going to be lights out. It's projected to be lights out, and they're projecting San Diego to win by 4. Okay, and I'm looking right in here. So the weather is pretty decent, and the wind is going the opposite direction. So it depends on on which side the team is going to be on. But again, that's another thing to think about. But Phillip Rivers, his DVP is that he has a very favorable matchup against Drew Brees and the New Orleans defense. And so with a situation like that, you can automatically kind of go in and say, Travis Benjamin is going to be right in the mix of all of that. And right now, he's also, of course, he's in a favorable matchup against the New Orleans pass defense. Okay, so their defense is not looking all that good. If I'm not mistaken, there was a couple of guys that ended up getting injured on Monday, and so you can exploit that. You can take advantage of that. So let's see, Travis Benjamin. Week 2, he did really well. Week 3, he did about average. If he would have had like 4 more points on week 3, he probably would have met value. But week 2, he definitely exceeded value. And again, we're talking about a situation where I feel like he's going to do some damage, and with him being at home, he should easily meet value. His average, let's see, he's season long, he averages, let's see, sorry, I missed him here. Travis Benjamin, there you go. So his floor is low, it's 3.7, but this is going based on like last year's stats. But season, he's averaging anywhere between 16 to 18 fantasy points, and then there's also another thing to look at for anyone that's really trying out Daily Fantasy Nerd for the first time. Look at the value rating. The value rating, will tell you a lot also about a player. You have all these heat maps. The heat map is strong on him, and you see the value. The value is definitely there. All right. Another person to look at going into week 4 is Pierre Garçon and Jamison Crowder. I prefer Jamison Crowder over Pierre Garçon. Not saying that he's not able to score. It's just that, let's look at something here. I feel like Jamison Crowder is getting more of the targets. I think and I'm correct. See, the thing is, over the past 3 weeks, his fantasy points have increased, by 4 points and then by 2 points, so 11, 15, and 17. And I think that he's going to be the one that's going to give you more value, even though for 200 less you can have Pierre Garçon, and you can maybe do a crapshoot with him and see exactly where you want to stand with that. However, I feel like the matchup that they have against Cleveland's pass D is very favorable, and his value rating matches that. Of course, Travis Benjamin's is a little bit higher, but again, mind you guys, these guys are going to be highly looked at this entire weekend. These teams or these games, the San Diego, New Orleans, and the Washington, Cleveland, I truly believe that they're going to be highly owned, but and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with high ownership as long as they produce. And of course, from there, you want to look at your value players and stuff like that. So another person you might want to look at based on value only is Steve Smith. Their matchup versus Oakland, it seems to be a very favorable matchup, and also for 4,500. That might be a good look, good situation to look at. But another person that a lot of people might kind of pass by is Mike Wallace. And I'm not biased because my last name is Wallace. I just feel like, that's a good player to target. Because in the prior weeks, prior to, week 3, Wallace was hitting it. He was exceeding his value. I mean, on average, if a 4,200 player gives you about 10 to 12 fantasy points, that's good, right? That's considered, like, for some people, they would consider that a good cash play or whatever. But I mean, this dude was hitting GPP numbers, for God's sakes. So, I mean, I feel like he would be the better choice over Steve Smith. And, you can look at Steve Smith's numbers, and you can see week 1, week 2, he wasn't really hitting. Week 3, he did hit, And for me, I'm always going to go for the guy who's more consistent. I feel like Mike Wallace is more consistent, but that's just my personal gut feeling. If we were just playing this by the numbers only, then, of course, you can look at Steve Smith and then go from there. Of course, I got a like on Terrell Pryor. I don't have him necessarily at a lock yet. I just want to find out some more information as to how they're going to be using him over the course of this weekend. As a matter of fact, I'll be honest with you guys, like, I haven't really reserved any lineups for DraftKings just yet. I have done it for FanDuel already, because with FanDuel, once you put in your lineups on Thursday, you can't switch it out. You can't do any late swaps. The beautiful thing about DraftKings as opposed to FanDuel is that you can do late swaps on DraftKings and also on Yahoo Sports, if anybody's playing on Yahoo Sports. And just to kind of, put a shameless plug in here, Daily Fantasy Nerd does do Yahoo. Okay, so FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo. And so just something for y'all to look at. If we were to look at this from just a DVP standpoint, some people that you might not want to consider is, or maybe consider contrarian. See, Mike Evans, he will be considered a contrarian play because the Denver's defense is like super strong. And despite them having a couple injuries in their defensive line, they have some good, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, I just blanked out. Just had a severe brain fart. They have some good linemen that can replace some of the players that may or may not have been injured. But recently, though, Mike Evans, 20.9 fantasy points week 1, week 2, 19, week 3, 32.2. And week 2, look, he went against Arizona. And Arizona's defense is crazy, dog. Yo, Arizona's defense is like top of the line. Minus last week, they got their ass to serve, but it's all right. But Arizona D is one of the strongest Ds in the NFL, and he still was able to pull up 19 fantasy points. And if Denver is anything like Arizona, we can at least maybe see about 15 to 20 fantasy points from Mike Evans. So that's a good contrary play. On FanDuel, I already have him locked in on one of my lineups, okay? And that's the only person I really want to target from the wide receiver end on the Tampa Bay side. Another person that you can possibly look at maybe as a punt play is maybe Vincent Jackson. Eric Decker, I just found out. I just saw something on my phone. He is out. Let's see, hold on a second. I'll tell you right now. He is out for Week 4 versus the Seahawks, and apparently his rotator cuff is not on deck. So yeah, it's a partial tear in his rotator cuff, and that's not ugly. He does provide a lot of value too. And just to look at his numbers here, this guy can produce this, but I guess, he really damaged himself against the Kansas City Chiefs this past Week 3. Anyways, so another thing that y'all can do, especially if you're using Daily Fantasy Nerd as your #1 source for optimizing lineups, is look at their targets. That's another thing that I'm going to be looking at too. And the amount of yards per target too is it's a very big deal. So last 16, Antonio Brown, he's definitely a good play. He will be considered a contrarian play, but also a favorable play because he's playing at home. And I believe his home away splits are about the same or about, it's a 7-point difference. So, think about it. Like last weekend, he did 29 fantasy points on just yards, receptions alone. No touchdowns. Okay. And he had 18 targets against Philadelphia. And their defense is really good this year. That's another defense to look at going into Week 5, by the way, guys. But anyways, look, 29 fantasy points. 29 fantasy points, no touchdowns, all yards, all targets. I'm sorry, all receptions, all yards, all reception. And I'm trying to figure out what was another stat that adds to him having 29 fantasy points. But in any case, this dude had 18 targets, 12 receptions, 140 yards. So, yeah, he'll be considered contrarian, but he'll be considered a chalk play because honestly, Antonio Brown is pretty much matchup proof. Let me just take some drink here real quick. Honestly, guys, I'm off Odell Beckham Jr. This on the main slate, I am off Odell Beckham. Now, if I play the Sunday and Monday slate, those two, then I might consider Odell Beckham in some of my lines, and just got to see exactly how they're gonna really use him because they're not really using him like they did last year, and of course that's probably large in part due to Victor Cruz being back in, and then of course they have the new rookie in Shepard, and I feel like Shepard is getting more of the targets than Odell. Let's see, first game he did 13, second game he did 22, third game he did 18.3, and that's all due to him having a touchdown in 2 of the 3 games. Odell Beckham, however, as you can see, he hasn't had any touchdowns. However, his stats have increased over the weeks. So first week 11, he only had 8 targets. Second week 16.6, he had 11 targets. Third week he had 22 and he had 11 targets. So, to me, he will be considered more of a GPP play than a cash game play for anybody who does cash being 50-50, double ups, head-to-heads. But a receiver that I'm going to definitely be targeting is Stephon Diggs. I feel like there's going to be a good matchup for him, and the DVP is in his favor as well. And, let's look at his numbers here. He went against a strong Carolina D last week, but prior to that, Tennessee and Green Bay, I mean, he lit them up. He lit them up. He had 9 targets first week, 11 targets second week, 7 targets the third week, and of course that was due to Carolina's defense, even though they won by 12 points, which honestly surprised me. But then again, that's largely due to another position that I want to show you guys, and that's their defense. Over the past 3 weeks, they've scored over, I believe it's 60 fantasy points in defense alone. So let's see, that's 21, 12, that's 33, 33 and 28. That's 61. They scored 61 fantasy points over the last three games that they have played. And I don't feel like that's going to stop anytime soon. So they definitely are going to be like one of my top defense for this week. Another sneaky defense that I feel is going to be a good look is going to be Baltimore. I feel like their defense, and they're actually priced a lot lower than Minnesota. If you look at Baltimore's D over the past 3 games, let's pull it up here. Let's see this thing here. As you can see, it has gone up, not by much, but it's very consistent. So I'm definitely going to be looking at these guys as a GPP play, or maybe a cash play for defense. Most people don't really do a lot of research on defense, and really those additional points that defense provides, especially if the defense can hit you for a pick 6, which means they've the opposing team fumbled the ball, they recovered it, and they were able to take that ball down to the goal line. That's what they consider a pick 6. But if you hear something like, oh, another pick, well, that's considered an interception that was recovered by the defensive team. Let's see, tight ends. Oh, good God Almighty! All right, so of course Dennis Pitta is going to be very chalky. For those that don't know what chalk is, it's just going to be that go-to player that a lot of people, or the general public of people, are going to be hitting on. But if you look at the DVP matchup, you can see that Greg Olsen is going to be a chalk play against Atlanta. Atlanta does struggle against tight ends, and you could definitely get a lot of work out of Greg Olsen if he's playing against Atlanta. And I'm fortunate enough to go to the Atlanta game this Sunday. I'm actually based here in Atlanta, and I'm going to be right there in the field watching these guys play and do their thing. But as you can see with Greg Olsen, he's very consistent. He's good for at least 14 to 18 fantasy points. So for anybody that wants to play a cash game, he's definitely the guy to pick. And also for GPP, he's going to be a good look as well. Another person that I'm looking at is Kyle Rudolph. New York Giants do struggle heavily against tight ends. And then another two guys that I'm looking at is Hunter Henry and Zach Miller. And those 4 guys right there, guys, are going to really, give y'all some numbers. Kobe Fleener is a good look as well, kind of. If you just, wanted to just kind of do a crapshoot on him. But I would prefer Kobe Fleener at home rather than him being on the road. So that's the tight ends. Running backs, of course, y'all knew that I was heavy on Jeremy Hill, and he only gave me 7 fantasy points, which is about 5 points lower than what was anticipated. But I was looking at this. This is the reason why I was so gung-ho about Jeremy Hill. He for the most part, he's kind of consistent, right? Kind of. He was a punt play to me. And now that I think about it, I really wish I didn't put him in my FanDuel lineup for the Monday through Thursday slate that I played, because I didn't really cash over there. I cashed more over here, but it more than covered my loss because I really didn't play much on that end for the Monday through Thursday. But for what it's worth, I honestly thought that, he was, he was getting the targets. That's the most important thing. And I think with this past situation, I don't think he got all of the targets that he needed. Let's see here. Jeremy Hill. Let's see, look at that. Last game, 71 yards, attempts. See. Yeah, he was only targeted once, like target. So anyway, 7.1 points. What can you do about that? You can't predict everything, right? But I was really good gun-ho on Jeremy Hill. Melvin Gordon is going to be a chalk play, something for for y'all to look at. Ezekiel Elliott is in a favorable matchup as well. Duke Johnson is also in a favorable matchup. Mark Ingram, Cameron Artis-Payne, he's in a good matchup, especially with oh my God, what's that guy's name? He got injured. I forget his name. But anyways, they're definitely in some good matchups. Now, if you want to play around with this a little bit more, you can look at the value, and you can see Jordan Howard might be a good look for this weekend. Jarrett McKinnon, I'm not sure. I'm not too big on him. But of course, if it's the Sunday and Monday slate, then that's definitely someone to look at. Carlos Hyde, he's going against Dallas. Dallas run game is okay, but as you can see in the DVP is at 9%, so they're like not rated that high. So you can definitely get some work out of Carlos Hyde, and maybe to kind of go along with that, you can look at his numbers. Week 1 versus LA, 23.3 against Carolina, which is a good D, 7.2. Against a weekend defense in Seattle, he did 28.5, and they still lost. But this dude pulled up 28.5, so he's definitely going to be a sneaky play in my books. Personally, I do have some shares of Hyde, and then you have that to go on. So let me do this real quick. Before I move on, I'm gonna unlike Jeremy Hill, and I'm gonna like Hyde. All right, and I'm gonna remove the Miami and Cincinnati game. And another thing that I want to look at is the projected usage rate, which is a brand new feature from Daily Fantasy Nerd. And you can see, QBs that will be used the most. Matt Ryan, And so, of course, if Matt Ryan has a high usage rate, then Tevin Coleman and Julio Jones and Sanu, those are some guys that really have a high usage rate. Not too sure about Jones this week because, again, he's still kind of dealing with that little nudge of an injury. But as you see, we can go down the line, Garoppolo, because I believe Tom Brady won't be coming in until week 5. So Garoppolo, I think, might be feeling better. He might, might have a good look. You have Andrew Luck and Hilton Dorsett combo. That might be a good look. You have Fitzpatrick against Seattle. Even though Seattle's projected to win, I still believe that Fitzpatrick and his crew might be able to do some damage due to the fact that Russell Wilson is he has a couple of injuries that he's dealing with, and in my books, I feel like they should just kind of let him rest out week 4 and just take one for the team. But Roethlisberger, he has a good situation. Le'Veon Bell is back. We don't know exactly how he's going to perform, but it's something, something definitely to look at. So, but anyways, if that's just to look at the quarterbacks, right? Let's see the usage rate of a running back. We got Lamar Miller. He's in a good matchup against Tennessee. Kind of. Actually, no, I'll take that back. From what I've read, Tennessee's run defense is really good. Their pass defense is whack. So in a situation like that, I probably would look at Dustin Hopkins, for some looks. Maybe a Osweiler or Hopkins stack or something like that. C.J. Anderson, Um, you see, David Johnson, he's a good look. I don't know about Todd Gurley too much. Todd Gurley has honestly been disappointing to me. I mean, he kind of broke out week 3, but prior to that, he really didn't do too much. And yeah, as you can see, oh, excuse me. So that's that. Let's see. Let's look at wide receiver 1. Again, we're talking about Julio Jones. Of course, being at home, everyone's going to be looking at him. But I'd rather go for Antonio Brown because he's healthier and he's not dealing with any pain or anything like that right now. Evans is a country. Remember, we were talking about Evans, and he's a contrarian play despite the DVP matchup. And, he's strictly GPP in my books with him. Terrell Pryor is a good look, of course, still seeing what's going on with him. And then Alshon Jeffrey, I think he's still nudging with an injury, so I wouldn't really target him too much. And then, of course, as you start going down, you can start seeing some numbers and start seeing some things that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily notice. And honestly, guys, this is an awesome tool. Let's say, for instance, you haven't done too much research. And let's say, for instance, you just itching to get a lineup in and you didn't have enough time to do your research. Let's do something here. Let's play around with the tool. Reset. Let's see. Reset locks, and I'm going to reset my likes. And we're just going to do this tool right now. Okay. All right. So based on usage, we see that Matt Ryan is going to be, he has usage rate of 70%, right? So we're going to lock him in, all right? And then I told y'all I didn't really feel too hot about Julio, so I'm not going to deal with Julio. I'm going to lock in Tevin Coleman, all right? And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a wide receiver 2, and I'm going to use Sanders. Forget his name. I forget his first name, but Sanders. Of course, Decker is out, so we're not going to be dealing with him too much. In the tight end position, we are looking at Gronkowski, Kelsey, Reed. And honestly, what I do is I'm going to go with the guy that I like, which is let's go with a punt play on this one. We're going to go with Henry. Let's see, he's in here. Now what? Let's go with Rudolph. Okay. All right. So we have that, and then do we have a running back? Okay. We're gonna pick David Johnson as our running back. All right. So I have those players locked, getting out of the projected usage rate, and I'm going to optimize my lineup. Okay. So with that being said, as you can see, I have Matt Ryan, Tevin Coleman, David Johnson, Steve Smith, Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, Kyle Rudolph, Jerick McKinnon, and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Now, remember, I was telling you about Baltimore's defense, right? So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Baltimore. I'm going to go ahead and go in there and lock them in. And they are $400 cheaper. So let's see, where is Baltimore? Baltimore. Okay, hold on a second, I'm sorry. Why am I not seeing Baltimore? Oh, there we are. All right, there we go. Go lock in Baltimore, and I'm going to redo this. All right. So now what I have is Matt Ryan, Tevin Coleman, David Johnson, Steve Smith, Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, Kyle Rudolph, Jerick McKinnon, and the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. And in this situation right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in to the usage rate. And what I'm going to do instead of on my wide receiver 3, actually, let me do this. My top guy, Matt Ryan. I am going to lock in Sanu. So just in case, Sanu gets targeted over Julio Jones, and let's say, for instance, Matt Ryan does a pass touchdown, then what we're looking at is 4 points for Matt Ryan and 6 points, 4 to 6 points for Sanu. So that just double up your points there, which gives you an edge, especially if you're doing that type of stacks. And one of the things I'm going to remove here, when it comes to GPP, I like to focus more on wide receivers than running backs and tight ends. Now, if you just want to be contrarian, you can always put a running back in there. But usually when you use the running backs, that's really more for like the cash games, because they get more touches, they have more chances to score fantasy point goodness than that of a wide receiver. And the stats prove it. So let's just do this real quick. Okay, so it switched out. Antonio Brown and Jared McKinnon. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, unlike Coleman and unlike Sanu, despite the fact they'll be correlated with Matt Ryan, and they're questionable. And that, for me, when the stats say questionable, I usually try to fade a player anyway, because I don't want to deal with a player that is with a nudging injury, and then they go out there, they start performing, and then something happens, and then they're out. Because that means no points for you, and that means whatever chance you had of cashing big in a tournament or for a cash game is going to be very, very slim. So we're going to redo this. Okay, so this is a dope lineup right here, actually, and I think I'm actually play it. Matt Ryan, David Johnson, Orleans Darkwa, Terrell Pryor, Emmanuel Sanders, Jeremy Maclin, Kyle Rudolph, Antonio Brown, and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I'm pretty sure I could find a more value RB, and let's see if we can find one for 3,000. Value. Let's see. Honestly, I'm not really big on Jeremy Maclin. So let's see. Wide receiver. Let's see what we got. Let's see if we got any cheap wide receivers here. I like Tyrell Williams. I think he's in a good position. Okay. So let's do this real quick. Update the lineup right quick. I'm not really feeling Jared McKinnon right now. So let's refresh that one more time. Before I do, Antonio Brown, we'll lock in Antonio Brown, Tyrell Williams. Okay, you know what? We got one. Matt Ryan, Jordan Howard, David Johnson, Terrell Pryor, Emmanuel Sanders, Tyrell Williams, Kyle Rudolph, Antonio Brown, and the Baltimore Ravens. That looks like a good lineup. That looks like a solid lineup. And I will play this lineup, honestly, guys. I will play this in cash and GPP. And as a matter of fact, I actually want to do that. Let me look at this. Let me go in here real quick. Go to the lobby. I am officially playing this lineup. I'm going to at least put $1 on it. I'm going to do $1 in that, and then I'm going to do $1 in the double up or something like that. And then what I can do a video and come back and show y'all the results of that and see if we hit fantasy gold or fantasy egg. So let's see, entry fee. If you heard that weird noise in the background, that was my dog. He's laying on my foot because, I don't know, he has a foot fetish or something like that, right? Used to see this dog when he's around ladies. Oh my God. Yeah, he's such a ladies man. Anyways, let's find the line. Let's find a tournament to jump into here. And what I'm looking for here, I'm looking for a tournament that has under 15,000 entries in the dollar game. Matter of fact, let's do this. There we go. One of the mistakes that I used to make when I was playing DFS, I was always going for the larger tournaments, and you know, with the larger tournaments, there comes a lot of the amount of people that actually cash in larger tournaments is a lot smaller than a smaller tournament. You know, I feel like in a smaller tournament you have more of a 25 to 30% chance. I'm sorry, 30 to 40% chance of getting it, as opposed to whatchamacallit, as opposed to playing the larger tournaments, right? So let's look at something here. I don't see any small tournaments. I only see satellites, and that's not what I want. So we're just going to go for the NFL first down guaranteed Sunday through Monday. First place gets 1,000. You know, the last place was 34.50. It will only be able to double up their money. Okay, so this is the one we're going to play. I'm going to draft a team. And honestly, guys, another reason why I do these live videos is because I also want to show, I want to have a level of accountability for what I'm talking about. And, you know, one of my main strategies is honestly defense versus position. And then from there, what I do is I go out and do more research and see who's getting the target, who's going to get looked at, who's injured on the offensive team, on the defensive team. But the defense versus position is always going to be the core of my research. Once I have that down, which thank God, you know, Daily Fantasy Nerd does a good job of that as opposed to other websites, I can really go in and dig deeper and find out who's going to be my guy, you know, my set of guys for this particular week. All right, so again, we got Matt Ryan, Jordan Howard, David Johnson, Terrell Pryor. Let's see. Sanders. Hey, by the way, if y'all decide to play this and if it hits big, you know, I greatly will accept the tip. And if you don't, that's fine. No worries. At least, you know, do me a favor and take advantage of what Daily Fantasy Nerd has to offer. As you can see, the tools are very self-explanatory and it's very easy to use. Even if you're a novice player, you know, if you just follow the heat maps and some sound money management advice, you'll end up winning more than what you lose, you know, and you will end up building your bankroll overall. Okay. So this is the lineup that I have: Matt Ryan, Jordan Howard, David Johnson, Antonio Brown, Terrell Pryor Sr., Emmanuel Sanders, Kyle Rudolph, Tyrell Williams, and the Ravens defense. And they're projected to score 141 points, the least. So what I will do is I will come back and do a video, seeing exactly how this lineup did in particular, as well as other lineups for the Sunday through Monday slate or the Sunday only slate. So y'all stay tuned and check that out. This is your boy Sean Black, aka DFS 5050. You can follow me on the Facebook page at DFS 5050 or on Instagram at DFS 5050. On Twitter, I am _ Sean Black. That's SEANBLAQUE. And on that note, I am going to be working on some beats because that's what I like to do. I like beats. That's part of my business. And DFS will soon be another business that I will be dominating in as well. Look, in all you're getting, get understanding. Read through the lines, read the fine print in life, and I will holler at y'all later.